This is the Decision Point with Anand and Nanduri. Anand, we're freelancing a show. I got no show sheet. We just have news coming at us left and right. Jalen Carter has just been connected to a fatal car crash, and now he's being investigated, and this is certainly going to affect his draft stock. He was supposed to be the 1 or 2 overall pick. This is big.
Yeah. He's scheduled to speak in Indy, Wednesday morning. I have a feeling he's not going to make that. So sorry, Cody, and sorry, Alex. You're probably not going to get that interview. But, how much does this shake up everything for everybody else, right? Like, especially, obviously in the context being in Chicago, I'm going to put it in some kind of Bears lens. Now your decision functionally cannot be Jalen Carter with this hanging over your head, right? If you're going to be in that top 4, as people have speculated that it's going to be Indy that ultimately moves up to 1, the Bears move down to 4. If that's the case, the big fucking problem you have now is now you're looking at Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson instead of Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. Not that Tyree Wilson doesn't deserve to be, mentioned among them, but there's no defensive tackle that's there, right? Like, you're now purely edge rusher.
Bro. Tyree Wilson is 6'6", 275.
Oh, yeah. Freak.
Bro.
Freak.
6'6", 275 edge rusher.
Oh, yeah. He's that's the whole deal. If you want to just have fun, if you're missing football and you miss guys just being absolute fucking dudes, Tyree Wilson against Texas is just violence. That was awesome. That was just awesome to watch. Oh, God. Yeah, you're not going to see many better individual just prospect. Well, this is what this guy can do, right? We saw one CJ Stroud against Georgia, but Tyree Wilson against Texas was just, that guy's a little different.
And Miles Murphy, he's 6'5", 275. These guys are about to test at the combine. Cody is at the combine. This is very exciting. And I'm most interested in seeing Tyree Wilson because when I saw the size, when I saw the proportions, I was like, okay, well, this could be a very, very interesting, completely disruptive guy that actually overtakes Will Anderson. Just like Trayvon Walker last year, right? He moved up in the process. It was all about Kayvon Thibodeau. If you remember,
it was
March 1 last year, it was all about Kayvon Thibodeau. Then it became Trayvon Walker. That's what I was thinking could happen to Tyree Wilson. And now that we have one of those pieces likely off the board in Jalen Carter, all the more reason to start considering Tyree Wilson at the 101. But before we do, Jalen Carter, prediction on where he's drafted.
It depends on how quickly they get all this resolved, right? If it's determined rather quickly that he has nothing to do with it, he pleads out of it. I think it was Todd McShay that came out and said something about, hey, you're going to start hearing something about him. This is going to be a problem. And we kind of dismissed it because things like that have been said before about players. But he's absolutely right. Deserves his credit for that. I think I still don't think you see him leave the first round. You're talking about an all-time defensive tackle prospect. And, it was pretty clear. When we did the show last year, we were talking about how unbelievable Jordan Davis was at Georgia and how next year's version of Jordan Davis was even better than the one we got last year in terms of Jalen Carter. So, I have a hard time believing that someone at the end of the first round doesn't throw a dart, assuming that, it's not worst case scenario, but that's just it, right? Like we have no information to go off of other than a press release, basically. So, it's kind of wait and see, but I still, short of something really crazy happening here, I don't see him leaving the first round.
Yeah. Late teens.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You could see Seattle taking a chance. Miami can't. Miami can't pick him at 21. You want to know why?
No. They forfeited their pick.
They forfeited their pick. Why'd they forfeit the pick?
Because Stephen Ross was doing some shady shit.
What was Stephen Ross doing?
Tampering for Tom Brady and fucking Sean Payton at the same time.
Wait, so let me get this straight. This was about the top equity holder tampering and trying to recruit players and coaches before those conversations were allowed to start happening. This was not about offering bounties for losses.
I can't remember. I think it had something to do with all. Yeah, I think it was all.
Pick your scandal.
Yeah,
for
right.
Stephen Ross, right?
Yeah,
I'll give you X $1,000 for every loss. What are you doing? These guys, they live in another. If you don't think that is just the perfect example of guys that don't think the laws of the land apply to them, live in a completely different universe than the rest of us, just like that you would even consider doing that. You wouldn't even think about the not just the ethical issues, but that it could cost you draft picks. I'm sure that he never even thought about it. It didn't even occur to him that it was unethical because he can do whatever he wants. He has as much money as he'll ever be able to spend. So then, therefore, he could just ask anyone to do anything at any time, and he doesn't worry about anything. So he doesn't even bump up against the ethics, much less the sort of rational decision-making with consequences down the road as a member of a league that has rules. Stephen Ross.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like, this is the weekend of the year, well, the week, really, / weekend of the year that you hear everything, right? I mean, you've got every agent in town, every general manager's in town. You got a bunch of owners in town, coaches in town. They're all fucking hammered, whether it's St. Elmo's, Byrne, wherever it is. I mean, like, it's open tampering. Like, that's what this week is. And a lot of these deals that end up getting done later towards the draft in terms of trade compensation, in terms of, players getting moved, players getting cut, whatever the situations are, all these things are hammered out in Indianapolis, at least, to begin with. So, I mean, look, like, if you're someone that's trying to learn the ins and outs of how all of this stuff works, one of the best things you can do is just sit yourself down at 1933 at St. Elmo and just listen. Because I mean, you've got open tampering going on within earshot of Pelissero and within earshot of Rappaport, and it's just fucking hilarious. Because I mean, we all know what's going on, right? Like, it's that Cody and Alex can fill you in on that too, especially with the work that they're doing out there. But it's just so funny that this is the one week where everybody's like, well, there are tampering rules, but there aren't.
Once Daniel Snyder has let his team go, is Stephen Ross going to be the new worst top equity holder?
I mean, he's up there. He's way up there. Like, it's still going to be tough to top Cal McNair. Like, the Texans are at least the product on the field for Miami is watchable. Like, the Texans are just, there are no words for what Houston's doing right now. So,
who are they drafting at 2? Who the Texans going to go defense at 2, or think they're going to go quarterback?
I think Bryce Young's the guy, unless he gets taken at 1 before them. Unless he gets sniped for them, I think Bryce Young's the guy.
How is this possible? Why did they not learn their lesson? I learned my lesson. Right, I learned my lesson with Baker Mayfield. I had Baker Mayfield over Josh Allen, and that was a mistake. How have they not learned this lesson with teeny tiny quarterbacks? That, yes, a Drew Brees is possible, an extreme outlier is possible, but
are you betting on that?
The size issue is real. You don't want to chase outliers, especially when it comes to the size of the most critical piece on the team, quarterback. Why would you take that chance on Bryce Young?
The really strange, so this goes into kind of our, we don't know anything about anything until post-combine, right? Last year at this point, pre-combine, Trayvon Walker's odds to be number 1 weren't even listed. As of mid-March, they were about 35-1, and then obviously ends up going 1 overall. So obviously it's possible to fall in love with the traits, then go back and revisit the tape after you have all the athletic testing numbers, after you have an RAS score, and go back and try to find those traits that you like in tape again, which obviously teams are going to do. And the guy to me that is going to absolutely set the combine on fire and someone's going to fall in love with him is Anthony Richardson. As crazy as Levis's arm is, Anthony Richardson's physical tools are just crazy, and I could absolutely see someone falling in love with him and him ending up in that top 10.
Headline on Sports Illustrated. Oh, Sports Illustrated. Ooh, right. Remember Sports Illustrated? Very prestigious publication many years ago.
Yeah.
The Colts can't let the Texans get Bryce Young. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
That's where if you're the Bears, that's the bidding war that you want to create, right? Like Carolina may move up from 9 and give up a king's ransom. They may do that.
What?
But the draft is weird, Matt. People do all kinds of really dumb shit. The Rams gave up like half a draft for Jared Goff. Just really strange shit starts to happen whenever there's this, quarterback scarcity that people are, there are only 4 this year, right? Whether it's, whether you want Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and if they all go top 10, you're fucked. Because what do? You probably got to take Hendon Hooker at the bottom of round 1 because there's no guarantee he's going to be there in the middle to late round 2, right? Like now you're really scrambling. So this happens every year. Quarterbacks just get pushed up the board out of necessity, which is fine. Like we've talked ad nauseum about how important it is to get that right. But the thing is, there just aren't enough of them to warrant 4 going in the top 10. Yeah, if they all hit, of course they're worth top 10 picks. We all know that. That's not news. The question is, there are 10 better prospects than these 4 quarterbacks, and there are going to be a handful of guys that are there between 11 and 15. If these guys all go top 10, that you're going to sit there and be like, why the hell is this guy available at 14? Kind of like when Tampa was sitting there with Tristan Wirfs.
I couldn't disagree more. Mac Jones would be the best quarterback prospect in this class, and he went at 15. It's all relative. And these teams fall for it year after year after year. They talk themselves into Jared Goff and Carson Wentz 1-2 when these players are not top 5 caliber prospects. It's just that you need a quarterback, and they're the best quarterbacks that this class has to offer. I would hope that they wouldn't fall for it again. They can't fall for it. This is not an impressive quarterback class. This is a super, super flawed. This is not 2021. This is 2023. And you have a Bryce Young, who is the best thrower of footballs, who is listed at 6 foot tall. 6 foot sub 200.
There's no way he's 6 feet tall.
He's 5'11", and he's not athletic. So let me get this straight. So I'm going to get a Kyler Murray-sized quarterback that has a lesser arm and very little mobility. And this guy is in the conversation to go 101 if the Bears trade out of it. The Bears are committed to Justin Fields, right? They're not going to draft a quarterback, are they?
I think there was a lot of stuff. I mean, it's their due diligence, right? If you're Ryan Poles in the front office, your job is obviously to go through and evaluate these quarterbacks and see if there's anyone better. Justin Fields would be the number 1 quarterback in this class by a pretty wide margin, if you ask me.
Of course he would be.
And so, I don't know why.
Of course, so would Mac Jones.
I don't know where the Bryce, I don't dislike Bryce Young as a prospect. There's a lot to like there, but you're also gambling a lot on someone being a true outlier. And that's one of the positions where I don't know how much risk you're willing to take in terms of, look, if Josh Allen busted, the guy was 6'5", 240. It's not, he didn't bust because of his size. He didn't bust because his body wasn't going to hold up in the NFL, right? It was just either he was going to figure out how to make NFL reads and NFL throws, or he wasn't. And he figured it out, and he's a demigod now. But Bryce Young is never going to be anything other than what he is in this frame, and that's the unfortunate part, right? If he's 6'2", 6'3", this is a super easy eval if he's 6'2", 6'3".
We have a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", Anand, with similar statistics. in CJ Stroud. How is this a fucking conversation?
It's not.
That we're comparing CJ Stroud to a backup quarterback in the league. How is this possible? I keep seeing these crazy headlines. Did I mention Sports Illustrated? The Colts can't let the Texans get Bryce Young. What the fuck are you talking about? He's 5'10". What the? He ran for 0 yards in a season, and the year before that he ran for negative yards. I thought we were in on players like Trey Lance, right? Isn't that like Kyle Shanahan moving up because this is the new paradigm? You're looking for the next Josh Allen, the next Jalen Hurts, and now we're chasing the next Baker Mayfield. What is happening?
This is the really strange part.
Weird
about because the natural Bryce Young comp that everyone wants to make is Drew Brees, right? But we have a litany of guys that have succeeded to an extent at that height, but they're not. We're not talking about them as ridiculous all-time greats outside of Drew Brees. That's it, right?
He's smaller than Drew Brees. Russell
Wilson's a plus athlete. That's not what we're talking about here. Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, A+ athletes. That's not what's being discussed here. Yes, Bryce Young is an athlete, but he's not that.
If he put up huge numbers somewhere else, okay. Yeah. Okay. It'd be a conversation.
It's Alabama.
Right? It's Alabama. Yeah. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And this guy benefited from the Alabama system, and he was very efficient, but he wasn't Mac Jones level efficient. He was good, but he wasn't CJ Stroud level good.
No, I think
what is happening?
I think that there is one game that is carrying a lot of the weight of this grade for Bryce Young, and it's his 2021 game against Georgia, where he was remarkable. There's no sugarcoating it. It was every bit what you saw from CJ Stroud against Georgia, where you've answered all the questions that we could possibly have of you in this one game. The problem then being is how many of those games can you start for me being 5'10" without shoes on? That's a major concern, right? Kyler Murray has way more escapability than Bryce Young does, and he's having problems making it through seasons. And you're talking about a better arm, better legs, and a more fluid, dynamic athlete. That's the only thing that concerns me about Bryce Young. But the thing is, I say that's the only thing, but that's one of the biggest things. Can you hold up, right? There's
gigantic.
A reason. Yeah, there's a reason we don't put 5'9" receivers out playing flanker. You're either in the slot or you can't. You're not lining them up to play X and go play jump ball. It's just not within the realm of possibilities of things that you can do. You're asking Bryce Young to break so many molds here as the 101 that, look, if you're right and you're right, great. There's no one will be happier to be wrong, right, than everybody that has these height and size concerns about Bryce Young. But they are legitimate concerns, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 23 years since Drew Brees was drafted, and a lot has changed in the way the NFL scouting industrial complex grades players. But they got Drew Brees right.
Mm-hmm.
They got him right. They said, this guy is an extreme outlier. He's the best of the extreme outliers we've ever seen. You cannot, in good conscience, use a first-round pick on him. But if you want to take him as the first pick in the second round, by all means.
Right.
By all means. In the second round, permission to start chasing outliers, but not with first-round capital. So he is, at best, an early second-round pick. The fact that people are talking about him as the potential 101, that the Bears would commit to him over Justin Fields, that teams would trade up from 9, a king's ransom, as you said, from Carolina to get to 1, because you can't let the Houston Texans get Bryce Young. It would be crazy. You couldn't let him do that. right? Especially if you're Indianapolis, you're in the same division. That's the argument. That's the argument. That's the nonsense argument in these articles. Well, you're in the same division. You can't be competing against Bryce Young for the next 10 years. Your franchise is fucked, Indianapolis, if you let Houston get him. Well, what are we to – that is flawed rationale from the beginning, and then it's based on this flawed premise that Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this class, and he's not. If I'm drafting, I'm considering him after the 3 quarterbacks that have real, true upside. He is in another classification. He's a safety pick where you're fine if he ends up being a top-tier backup in the league. Great, cool. But this is not a difference-making player. CJ Stroud could be a difference maker in the league. If Anthony Richardson certainly could be. As could Will Levis. Will Levis has the big arm, but he's missing the stats, and that's a big missing piece.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, missing the arm, but has the stats.
Yeah, you're looking at 3 prospects here that are different. They're different stages of what you would call projects to be NFL starting quarterbacks. Of everybody in this class, the most pro-ready player is CJ Stroud.
Easily.
If you're looking for day one, he can start, he's going to be fine. That's your guy. Right?
How is this an argument? How is it not clear that the move would be to potentially, if you're Indianapolis, if the argument is, well, you should trade up with Chicago to get CJ Stroud, I would be like, well, that's interesting. Let's talk. That's an interesting conversation. Is that worth it or not? Is Stroud good enough for that? Probably not. I would personally advise trading up hardly ever, but maybe.
Especially 8 slots for 101, no less.
Well, if you're Indianapolis trading up 4 spots, even you're still going to have to give up a lot to go from 4 to 1. So it's probably not worth it. It's hard to justify any of these quarterbacks in the top 10 outside CJ Stroud because they're all projects. They're all flawed. One guy's missing the refinement. One guy's missing the statistics and the efficiency. Another guy's missing the physical tools. One guy's missing the physique and the requisite stature. So it's all sifting around in the dented cans bin in this class. That's what it is. And the idea that there could be 3, if not 4, depending on how hot this Anthony Richardson hype machine gets, this hype engine gets, that you could have 4 when it's questionable whether there should even be 1 quarterback go in the top 10 just because there's so much need is wild to me. I was talking to Jordan McNamara yesterday. My suspicion is that the scouts know what I know about these quarterbacks and that some of these teams that need a quarterback will actually trade back because they're not going to push the button. They never had any intentions of pushing the button. The message never got to Sports Illustrated that there's no fucking way, right? And that there's going to be teams that are trying to trade up for offensive linemen and defensive linemen that are going to end up trading up for these picks that are held by the quarterback-needy teams. I suspect that happens. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Indianapolis actually says, hey, guys, guess what? Hey, sorry, Sports Illustrated, we're actually moving down because we've got people that want offensive line. Offensive line is at such a premium, right? When you have the chance to get Paris Johnson Jr., Peter Skoronski, when those guys are available, you might trade up 2 or 3 spots to try to get those guys if you're a team that's trying to compete, and that's a missing piece. If I'm trying to build a team from the ground up, like the Detroit Lions, that would be the starting point. With like, okay, let's get Johnson or Skoronski through the door. Let's build around that, and then we'll go from there. Right? It's funny. Like there's always some sort of Northwestern tackle that's in this mix.
Yes.
Right? It was like, oh, Sewell, but also like a Northwestern tackle. And it's like, oh, Johnson or a Northwestern tackle. And this is my alma mater. It's like it's Tackle U now. I love that we're Tackle U. That's so great.
it decides not to push the button this year, which people would freak out about. I mean, because they have been, in quarterback hell forever. Caleb Williams, Drake May in 2024, and I know we do this every year where it's like, oh, next year's guys though. No. Caleb Williams and Drake May are going to change life for somebody. And look, I'm not saying that Stroud and Levis and Richardson and even potentially Bryce Young could not. I'm saying Caleb Williams and Drake May will change life for somebody, right? We're talking about the Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields of the world as opposed to, last year's class and this year's class. And going back to Richardson just for a sec, someone may fall in love enough to go to 101 because those traits in that body do not happen. Like,
whoa, you think that's the dark horse to go 101?
I think the dark horse to go 101 is Anthony Richardson.
Whoa. It was Will Levis was the dark horse to go 101. Now it's Richardson. I want Richardson.
Yeah.
I want Richardson. And my dream scenario is Detroit gets Richardson at 18.
If you get, look up the size. I don't know what he weighs, but you're looking at like 6'4", probably all of 235, 240. And if he runs sub 4.5,
it's a Trey Lance situation. He goes right up to the 103.
And the thing is, the thing about Anthony Richardson is he's just raw. He doesn't have horrible habits yet. It's not like someone ruined him. He just didn't have enough starts to figure it out. And so if you take him, you're acknowledging, yes, this is a project, but this isn't a project that you have to reconcile. Nobody's ruined, quote unquote, Anthony Richardson yet. He's just simply not taken enough snaps to figure out what he can be yet. And if you have the right offensive system in place for him to bring him along, there is no one in this class that has the ceiling that Anthony Richardson has. It's if you're drafting, if your goal is to hit the moonshot, right? Which it seems to be what you need to do in the AFC these days anyway. If your goal is to hit the moonshot, Anthony Richardson's your best chance to get there.
Easily.
Yeah.
He's really the quarterback I want. I love CJ Stroud because I think arm strength is overrated. And I love Anthony Richardson because refinement in college is also overrated. Just ask Josh Allen, but also many others.
Yeah.
That Cam Newton barely played in college.
Yeah.
In one season. It's like, whatever, man. Get out of here. Like, if you have that body and you have those physical tools, I want to get you in the door. And especially if we have a Jared Goff already, if the buzz gets loud enough, right? If the buzz gets loud enough around Anthony Richardson, then it's going to be a question of Brad Holmes deciding, okay, not only are we going to use our first pick on Richardson if possible, but we actually may trade up with Arizona. Like the question is going to be to Detroit, to Carolina. Do you try to overtake the Colts? Like, assuming Houston goes Bryce Young, which would be a catastrophic blunder, which would set their franchise back another 5 years. Assuming they do that, and it would be just perfect. Like Cal McNair, just perfect, right?
Classic Texans.
The worse get worser, right? The bad get badder. That was what that would be. That would be perfect. And then, see, the Colts are like, okay, well, we'll get our pick of our guy. Oh, wait. The Cardinals are trading, right? They're moving down. Like, Ballard's like, wait, what's happening? And if Holmes were to do it, because he has all these extra picks every year, and he's been saving them and saving them and saving them for a rainy day. He's got a rainy day fund of picks, Anand.
Anthony Richardson and Honolulu Blue would be something. You want to talk about going from Jared Goff to the anti-Jared Goff. We're
not going away from Jared Goff. Jared Goff's going to be great for us in 2023.
Yeah,
We're looking forward to Anthony Richardson in 2024.
And I mean, you couldn't talk about two more contrasting styles of play than Jared to Anthony Richardson. But I mean, think about what DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams were able to do without a rushing quarterback threat, and then add that level of dynamic athlete to the backfield and a guy that forces you to defend all 53 and a third every blade of grass because he can make all those throws. He just doesn't know when and how to do all of them yet, but he's got the talent to do it. And I mean, look, like, Florida's offense, if you go back and watch, is just, it makes you sad. Like, it was just, it was abject disaster is the nicest way that we could put it. Florida's offense was terrible, terribly schemed, terribly run last year. And obviously they'll get that fixed over time, but like it just kind of wasted a year of what should have been progression from Anthony Richardson. He didn't learn any bad habits. He didn't, it's not like there's anything to fix, quote unquote. He's just still raw because they didn't give him the opportunity to do the stuff that you want your franchise quarterbacks in the NFL to do. But like I said, CJ, Anthony, Will Levis, like, because there are essentially, if you add Bryce back in, essentially there are four guys and you're jockeying for position for them. Someone is probably going to drop out. That like you said, someone's going to say, you know what, this isn't our quarterback year, whether it's out of necessity because they need the draft capital or because they just get picked off and they're sitting there like, oh shit, what do we do now?
That's right.
Right.
We had our guy, we had our secondary guy, but if our primary guy and our secondary guy are gone, we're out.
Yeah, we're out. We're just selling, moving back, and we'll see what we can get, 7-8 picks later.
I think Atlanta does that.
I agree. And
I think Atlanta will have a guy circled. They might want Richardson, and then he goes to Detroit. And it's like, all right, we're out.
Yeah.
I could see that absolutely happening. That would make a lot of sense.
Yep.
The problem with these mobile Superman quarterbacks like a Cam Newton is they go to teams with the 101 or the 102, and they're set up to fail because they don't have the supporting cast necessary. Mm-hmm. This is why you want these guys to drop in the draft and end up going to teams with loaded rosters like Colin Kaepernick on the 49ers.
Lamar Jackson.
So that is the key. If you can get one of these guys to go to a team with a loaded roster like Detroit, then they're set up for Colin Kaepernick in the playoffs level success.
Yeah. And I mean, the guy that you want, right? Every team is going to value these guys differently because their skill sets range so widely, and there aren't two guys that are wildly similar, right? Like you have the ridiculous arm talent that is Will Levis. Not that Anthony doesn't have a ridiculous arm, but his arm is not Will Levis's. Then you have, the all tools prospect in Anthony Richardson where it's like, oh, we have this ball of clay. What can we mold him into? You have CJ Stroud, who's as close to a finished product as you can get in this class in terms of checking every box that you'd want in a quarterback. And then you have Bryce Young, where, if we can get over this huge hurdle of his size, everything else, there is the love about him as a prospect. So there's no perfect prospect. There's no Trevor Lawrence by any means. And so every team is going to value these four in whatever order that they value them in, however they choose to value them. And that's why we could have all four go in the top 10, because all you need is four teams to each think they're worth one of them is worth top 10 capital to have all four go in the top 10.
It would be a misuse of capital, an inefficient use of capital if all four of them were to go top 10. Best case scenario for a dream landing spot would be a team that is in such desperate need for a quarterback. The owner, wants one, right? Badly. Is the Carolina David Tepper, is he the richest of the equity holders?
I'm pretty sure if he's not, he's close.
So he has one of those egos.
Yeah.
Right? So
definitely.
He's like, just make a quarterback happen. We have lots of money. What's the problem? Oh. And so it's my David Tepper voice. Not that I've ever met him. I'm sure he's doing great. So the dream scenario is teams inappropriately place Bryce Young at the top of their board for ridiculous outlier chasing reasons. Other teams are chasing tools in Levis and Richardson. And then Stroud falls all the way to Carolina, similar to how Fields fell to Chicago.
And then here's the other part of this.
Because Carolina, with Stroud, wins that division. That's the most winnable division in football, and their defense is above average. They've invested in the offensive line. They have DJ Moore. This is a team that is a quarterback away. There's no quarterback away team that is set up better right now to win and make the playoffs than the Carolina Panthers. That's why ideally, if I were putting the players on the teams where I think that they would succeed the most, I would love to see Stroud in Carolina. I would love to see Richardson in Detroit. And Levis could succeed in a couple different places. I think Levis in Indianapolis makes sense. I think that's likely where he's going to end up after this process shakes out and you start to see all the infatuation with his arm. I can absolutely see the scouts banging on Chris Ballard's door enough about Levis, and then ownership coming in and saying, hey, we need to fix the quarterback position. You've tried, you've failed to patch it twice, right? You've tried to patch this tarp twice. It's still leaking. We need a new one. Get one now. 104. Do it.
So going off of that, especially your CJ to Carolina thing.
I would love that.
So Underdog, friends of the show, did a video series where they did breakdowns of, quarterbacks in college and their games. And they did breakdowns with a guy who might be pretty important to this whole scenario. It's new Panthers quarterback coach, Josh McCown.
Ooh.
And the two guys that he broke down are CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. And I encourage you to go watch those. They're about a half hour each. And you can watch him fall in love with CJ just watching this Georgia game. And I mean, it's no secret, right? It's no secret that Carolina's in love with CJ. The question that we have is, how in are they on Bryce? Do they care at all? Is it all a smokescreen? Like, all of the games that get played between now and the end of April. But it's pretty clear that Carolina wants him. And the question then becomes, where are they going to have to go to get him? Because the only guarantee in this draft that you have is trading with Chicago at 1. That's the only guarantee that you're going to get.
Arizona?
You could get Arizona at 3, but the thing is, who knows what Houston does at 2? If they decide, what if Houston moves up to 1? Chicago's sitting at 2. Now Chicago again can trade back and someone goes to 2 and takes CJ. Like,
oh shit, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
That's multiple layers of strategy there.
Yeah.
That would be what a burn that would be. That's why you can't make these trades too early.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot when to make these trades where you're confident that no one is going to subvert you, but you also don't want to learn later that another team was negotiating and for a particular pick that you were intending to try to go after maybe in a couple days. Meanwhile, there's already an agreement made in principle that happened before you even started to dial those numbers.
I mean, they're probably going on as everybody does exit interviews in Indy at the end of this week. There are probably a couple of handshake deals between GMs saying, hey, if this guy is available at this spot, we'll make this, and this happen, and we will trade with you on draft day for player X should they be available. Because, I mean, look, like, Arizona's not looking for a quarterback. Like, they don't give a shit. So if somebody's sitting there like, hey, Arizona, if Bryce Young happens to be available at 3, we will give you X for him. Those deals get negotiated all the time, right? Do they come to fruition all the time? No. But, like, I mean, it's why on draft day you have these crazy-ass trades that happen within seconds because they were agreed to in principle 2 months ago.
What about Carolina moving to 3? Should Houston take Bryce Young? They want Stroud. They're infatuated with Stroud. They correctly evaluated Stroud. What does it take? What does it take to go from 9 to 3?
It's probably going to take next year's 1 and probably either a 2 or 3.
That's too much.
I agree.
I can't believe another team would even ask for that with a straight face.
I mean, that's just the going rate of getting into the top 3 is expensive. Expensive.
It's wild.
The thing is, for a team like Carolina, you're going to compete in the NFC. Like, let's say you do get CJ. You're going to compete in the NFC South. You're going to win, probably. You're probably going to win down there.
Yeah, I just
win
think
the NFC South.
you have Will Anderson, one of the most prolific edge rushers, the most high pedigree edge rushers we've had in many, many years. And then you have the freaks in Wilson and Murphy. And it's going to be very similar to last year, where it's Hutchinson, it's Walker, it's Thibodeau, clogging up the top 5. And teams want those guys badly. They want to pressure the opposing passer so badly. And that's going to be part of it. You have these quarterback needy teams from the Colts, Falcons, Panthers, all the way down to Washington. And you've got all these teams that need to pressure the quarterback. And that's why you have such demand for, say, the 103.
Yeah. And, once you're in, because there are a couple leverage spots in this draft, right? 101, obviously, because the pick is for sale and everybody knows it. 103, because we're all pretty sure what Houston's going to do. If they stay at 102 and their guy is there, they're going to take Bryce. 103 is another leverage spot, right? Like, Arizona functionally at that point controls the draft. It's hey, what do we do here? Because you have all of these teams that now, hell, some of them may trade up for Will Anderson. Like,
that's right.
Let's say
that's what I'm saying.
Like, Will Anderson may be the prize that people are talking about, and it's not Richardson or Levis. I mean, teams move up and down for players all the time. Obviously we get infatuated with talking about the quarterbacks just because, shiniest toys on the field, everybody gets excited about them. But, Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, man, like, once people get to see what he does in Indy this week, like, that's going to, oh my God. That's another one. I'm telling you. That's another one where you're just like, oh, who is that guy?
I mean, remember the spot the Giants were in with those back-to-back picks.
Oh, yeah.
It's playing out the exact same as last year, where they had the best first round because they just took the chalk that fell to them.
Yeah.
Right? And then if one team had the 6th and 7th pick, I mean, that would just be a dream scenario, because then you're just like, well, one of these edge rushers could fall to us because of quarterback demand, and then we'll just take Paris Johnson.
We'll take the tackle and we'll take an edge rusher.
We'll take our tackle, we'll take our edge rusher, the best guys that fall to us, and we'll just say goodbye to the rest of the league and be like, hey, we won the first round. Good night.
Yeah.
So there's a couple teams that have that, right? There's a couple teams that have multiple picks. Seattle has multiple picks. Detroit has multiple picks. So it's interesting to see what they could do. They may move down. Philadelphia has multiple picks. They could easily move down and consolidate and then end up picking back-to-back at some point. Like, you could see, it's possible Washington trades up with Detroit, and then Detroit's picking in the teens twice. Plus, they have a first rounder next year, and so many possibilities. It's exciting when you have those multiple first round picks. The world just opens up to you. I mean, Houston could also do that, right? Houston could consolidate. They could trade down. That would be the most. No one's talking about that.
Yeah,
no one's talking about Houston trading down because they're just assuming they love Bryce Young and it's going to happen. But they could. Anything is possible. I would love to see Houston trade down and consolidate. If I were them, that's what I would be doing.
Yeah,
but they're not going to do that.
Young, Stroud, Levis, Richardson, all really good players. There's nothing. You're not going to be upset with any of them as your quarterback, but at the same time, they're not Caleb Williams, they're not Drake May, they're not Trevor Lawrence. Like if you have as many holes as Houston has, bringing in a quarterback doesn't really solve your problem.
Nope.
Your talent, your problem is that you have a talent deficient roster, not that you don't have a quarterback. Like Davis Mills is perfectly fine to get bludgeoned by whoever the hell it is, that's coming off the edge, but Trayvon Walker is going to splatter whoever your quarterback is anyway because you didn't get him a tackle. Like I don't understand what Houston's doing.
Houston has good tackles. That's the one thing Houston does have is good tackles. I don't think they're necessarily in the market for a tackle, but what they could do is go edge if they stay put. They could go edge. They could go Wilson at 2 and then just say, this is what I would do. If I were Houston and I couldn't trade, I would say I'm going to take our top-graded edge rusher that's available at 2, and then I'm going to let the league dictate which quarterback we get. Because you remember, once upon a time, at the 112, the league gifted Houston a quarterback who ended up having a lot of problems and getting suspended for a year, and now is on the Browns. But they have this pick because of that particular player, and it's the exact same draft slot as they had years ago.
Yeah.
2017.
If I am Houston,
the league's going to give him a quarterback, Anand. They're going to give him Will Levis. They're going to give him CJ Stroud. They're going to give him somebody. The league's going to give him somebody.
At
you
12?
think, it's impossible that Mahomes falls to 10. He did. It's impossible Watson falls to 12. He did. It's impossible Mac Jones falls to 15. He did.
Fields at 11. Yeah, I mean, look, there's history shows us that no matter how highly we try to overvalue the quarterbacks, someone will fall. And
the best example of this is Malik Willis getting mocked at the 101.
God.
Malik Willis gets mocked at the 101 and falls to the 3rd round.
This is for every Malik Willis truther that ever existed out there. Anthony Richardson is the guy you wanted him to be. If you were in on Malik Willis, if you liked him as a prospect, congratulations. You have the Pokemon evolution of Malik Willis. It's Anthony fucking Richardson. He has a better arm. He's faster. He's bigger. He's stronger. And he did it in the SEC. What more do you want? If you my question is, people go so back and forth. If your process was Malik Willis is a 1st-round talent, how the hell do you not have Anthony Richardson near the top of your big board, period? Because he's everything Malik Willis was, but better.
It's true.
Yeah. Look, there are so many things to like about each and every one of these quarterbacks, but like we said, they're flawed prospects. They're not generational talents. They're really good. And some of them have the potential to be great. Some of them have the potential to be superstars.
And Bryce Young has the potential to be Mitchell Trubisky at 2.
I mean, dude, Bryce Young is there's a lot to like about him, but the packaging is tough. Like a 5'10" with shoes on, like that's a tall hurdle to climb.
Titans general manager Ryan Carthen. Yeah, Ran. I look at that name and I see Ryan, and then I'm like, no, that's actually Ran.
Yep.
Said that Ryan Tannehill is a Titan and will be a Titan forever. No, I added the forever, but Tannehill not going anywhere. Malik Willis under contract for the next 3 years. The Titans absolutely need a quarterback. This is lying season.
Oh yeah,
welcome to lying. Some of the lies that are being told right now are they're just whoppers. It's whopper season. I can't believe the level of whopper that I'm being subjected to. But we're fully committed to player X, and we would never think about moving on from player Y. And Javonte Williams will be ready to play week 1. Stop lying to me, man.
Guys,
whoppers.
Guys, if you want to get good at understanding why teams do the things that they do. Learn how to read the difference between the absolute nonsense that makes no sense and the stuff that your brain tells you does make sense. Allow me to explain. Trayvon Walker last year blew up the combine. Jacksonville was looking for an edge rusher. The only thing that Aiden Hutchinson is not is a freak athlete. He's a really good athlete. Trayvon Walker is a freak athlete. They were betting on upside, and it made sense, right? I would have taken Kayvon Thibodeau. That's just me. At the same time,
they took the third best edge rusher.
Right. And the thing is, they're betting that long-term, the athleticism will win out, and over time, he will become the best of them. And that's fine. That's a process. If that's
Kayvon
what you
Thibodeau
want to do,
and Aiden Hutchinson are sick athletes, bro.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Trayvon's just RAS score of basically 10. That's freakish. Anyway, Ryan Tannehill has no reason to be in Tennessee. What the fuck are we doing here? We've seen what the ceiling of this team with Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown is. It's having the 1 seed and pissing down your leg at home against a team that was down 3 offensive linemen and starting a quarterback that was starting his 18th NFL game. What? Like, no version of the Ryan Tannehill Titans is ever going to win a Super Bowl. We're aware of this. He's a good player. We liked him for fantasy. He was a value for a while. What are we doing here?
I don't know.
If you're a general manager, why would you tie your stake to Ryan Tannehill if you don't have to? Rand Carthen has no involvement here. He didn't bring in Ryan Tannehill. He didn't give up draft capital for him. He didn't pay him. He owes him shit. This is the peak example of, right? Someone is going to get left out of quarterback musical chairs. And what's going to happen is Rand Carthen is going to offer them Ryan Tannehill. Why? Because the Jets can't go another season without a fucking quarterback.
That's right.
They can't.
That's right.
They can't. Right? And the Raiders can't go a season without a fucking quarterback. They have one on their roster. Chase Garbers is the only quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders right now. That is the only quarterback on the roster. That's not you can't sell your fans. That's not a product you can sell. Right? You're in Vegas. You're in the entertainment capital of the world. So something's got to give. And so he knows that at this point, his best opportunity is to hold on to Ryan Tannehill, wait for someone to get fucked, and then pass him on to the next highest bidder. That's all it's going to be. We all know what's going to happen with Ryan Tannehill. He's not the long-term answer there. If he was the long-term answer there, they would have paid him the money that shows you that he is. And obviously they have not. So what does it tell you? He's not the answer.
Clearly, the answer could be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I want Aaron Rodgers. I think that's the best fit is Aaron Rodgers. Nice, comfy, small town. I can see Aaron Rodgers going out, hanging out in Nashville, right? Not there. Some big city. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be in New York.
He has a house
I think
there.
that he's tired of Green Bay, but I still believe that he's more of a smaller city person. His personality, certainly, he'd much rather go into a cave than
that New York media is no joke.
Go to a club. I think that's unlike, say, like Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask likes the nightlife.
Look, if
Kyle Trask is apparently in the mix to compete. He's in the mix to compete for the starting job.
Like what the fuck does that mean?
It doesn't mean it. He's not. He's
you know
not.
What's funny?
He's not a player. He's never going to be anything as a starting quarterback in the league. He doesn't have the passion for it. We would have heard about it by now. Tom Brady would have been in some way threatened by him.
He's not.
Right? Like he was Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's not even Jimmy Garoppolo level threatening to Tom Brady. He's a nothing. So then the question becomes, who's going to be the quarterback in Tampa? That's another one. There's a lot of open quarterback chairs, like you're saying.
The worst place to be is without a quarterback and without a plan, right? and Tampa got there real quick.
Woo.
Like, I mean, a month and a half quick. Like, now.
Hey, they won the Super Bowl, though. They won the Super Bowl with Brady. You can't take that away.
They did.
There's 32 teams in the league. You have a chance to go all in with Brady, and then this is the pain. It's a pain trade. So now they're on the pain side of the pain trade now.
Yeah.
They need to expedite their rebuild and take it seriously. They have the 19th pick. I hope to God they don't trade up. They pick at 19. They have failed. That's a dead zone in the first round. You need to trade out of that pick to someone who has some need, like a final piece need. Trade it to them and get their first rounder next year and hope that it's a better pick plus a second, right? You got to trade out of that pick and accumulate picks. Your job as a Tampa Bay general manager starting today is accumulate the maximum number of picks possible. If they pick at 19, it's a catastrophic failure.
Yeah, Tampa's in a really weird spot too. Again, another one.
Tear it down, bro. You let go of Fournette. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. When they said, keep cutting.
2 weeks ago
Never
when they
stop. Why on earth would Mike Evans play another snap for Tampa Bay? Would make no sense.
I do not know.
You're not going to be competitive.
This is
at a time when Mike Evans can help you.
Fucking talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. 2 weeks ago, Jason Light goes to the podium, in the offseason. He's like, Leonard Fournette's part of our long-term plan. 2 weeks later, they fucking cut him. Like
Whopper. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, if this is a dynasty team and I have a Mike Evans and I'm rebuilding, I'm just putting him on the block, highest bidder, moving on. I'm not trying to extract every last penny of value. I'm just trying to open up that roster spot and get something in return and save some money in the process.
I mean, there are going to be suitors for Mike Evans.
Restructure the roster. Mike Evans is the most glaring candidate to get out of.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago should be interested for obvious reasons. The Chargers should be interested for obvious reasons. Like, there's going to be a healthy amount of a market for him. And the thing is, look, like we've told you before, Mahomes' contract allows Kansas City to do some wild shit. I was on yesterday with 810 in Kansas City, and we were talking about it. Just restructuring Mahomes, Kelsey, and Joe Tooney. It's $50 million in cap space. Like, that makes them big players to go get whoever they want, re-sign whoever they want, right? Like, there are more suitors than you think for these, aging veterans, especially on these teams where, the Super Bowl window is now. You're hiring mercenaries. Here's a great one. Mike Evans becomes a Buffalo Bill. How much does that change life?
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect. He's a straight up upgrade on Gabriel Davis. There's very few, if any, Gabriel Davis-like receivers in this draft. There's certainly none like Gabriel Davis in this free agent class. But Mike Evans does play the Gabriel Davis role. He'd be a great player to put opposite Diggs, and then you can rotate him and Davis. Don't ask him to play a full complement of snaps. Don't ask him to run the typical full X receiver route tree. You have some Gabriel Davis to rotate in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can play Diggs more in the slot. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're the Bills, we saw last year kind of the come to Jesus moment, right? And obviously it's one game at home that you lost in a pretty emphatic manner. But when you have the opportunity to potentially call Jason Light and make that deal, you have to do it, right? Like, there's a difference between going all in, like saying you're going all in, and actually doing it. The version of the last team to really truly go all in was the Rams. And the Bucs did it the year before, where they loaded up on everybody. We don't give a fuck how old you are, what the contract looks like. Come on down, right? We're going at this thing for a year. Then the Rams did it in 21. Buffalo tried to do it by bringing in Von Miller. But, it's got to be more than that, right? And I think we're in a window where Cincinnati and Buffalo really need to push the ends of this, because you're going to get to a situation pretty soon when you're Cincinnati where Higgins, Chase, Burrow is going to cost you $100+ million a year, right? And once you get to that, the rest of your roster is going to take a hit. It's absolutely going to. There's nothing you can do about it. You've got 2 years left. Run it.
You're like, hey, you get age 29 Mike Evans. He's not washed yet.
No.
We've paid out most of his salary in the form of a restructure bonus already. He's only owed $14.5 million this year when you add up his base salary and his roster bonus. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. We'll eat the cap hit. We don't care about the cap this year.
No.
Dead cap, bring it on. Give us your dead cap. Well, give us all your dead cap. We just want your goddamn picks. Give us your players. We'll eat the cap hit. Give us your picks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And whatever pick it is, I'm just going to shop around the league, all the contenders. Whatever picks I can get for him, he's a good deal. Ship him.
Yep.
It's the easiest trade I could possibly dream up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Mike Evans to Buffalo makes way too much sense for it not to happen.
It should happen. Make it happen, Buffalo. That's it. That's the show. Anand, thank you. We did something. We did something special today, which was we just improvised a show, no planning, no pre-show discussion even. I just threw nuggets at you. I threw lies at you. I threw bad prospect evaluations at you, and we did a hell of a show, my friend.
That we did. Looking forward to the next one.